Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're undertaking a deep dive into a narrative that truly defines the complex reality of human nature. It's a story of immense tragedy, really, born from an act of courage, but then followed by this profound life-saving generosity. We're focusing on the story of Adrian Whiting in Boston, Lincolnshire. He was a man who, in a spontaneous, public-spirited act, stepped in to help a stranger, and that single intervention led directly to his fatal attack. So our mission is to piece together the full picture. We're using the primary court records, witness statements, and some incredibly moving testimony from his family. We want to track the facts of the crime, the demanding pursuit of justice, and the extraordinary lasting impact of his decision to be an organ donor, a decision that ultimately saved 5 unrelated lives.
That's right. And that intersection you mentioned is really the key here. This is far more than just a simple sequence of events leading to a murder charge. It's an analysis of human accountability under pressure, and I think the power of a final transformative gift. We'll be looking very closely at the specific findings of the court. Judge Hurst's language in particular regarding intent and provocation is very firm.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Let's trace the events leading up to that fatal confrontation. It all starts on the night of January 14th. Adi Whiting, he was 35, the bar manager at the Carpenter's Arms pub. But the sources are clear, he wasn't even scheduled to work.
No, not at all. He'd gone down there just after 10 p.m. for a a domestic reason. His partner, Sarah Taylor, worked there, and she needed help with some kind of technical problem.
So he wasn't looking for trouble. I mean, he was literally there helping out, and he had their young child with him in a pushchair. A completely normal, quiet evening.
And it was that proximity, being right there at the pub, that drew him into the conflict happening outside. Maksim Iliev and Katya Soneva, who live nearby, were having this incredibly loud and aggressive argument on the street.
And Miss Taylor, his partner, she described Iliev as screaming, right?
Yes, screaming. And she said Soneva was visibly backing away, sort of retreating towards the pub entrance. It suggests she was trying to get away from the aggression.
And the CCTV, it captures the exact moment Whiting decides to intervene. The prosecutor, Jonathan Cox, he detailed how Whiting just stepped onto the pavement and was clearly telling them to clear off, to take their argument elsewhere.
So not aggressive, just direct.
Exactly, just trying to stop a public disturbance.
And that, according to the prosecution, is precisely what Iliev took exception to.
Right.
This is where it all shifts from a domestic dispute into a confrontation. What's crucial here is how Judge Simon Hurst later interpreted this act.
What did he say?
He specifically emphasized that Adrian Whiting acted in an extremely public-spirited manner. So that sets the context for everything. The victim's motivation was, pure.
But pure motivation doesn't always equal safety. And here's where the tragedy escalates and it gets complicated. Whiting goes back inside the pub, and the sources confirm he retrieved a metal baseball bat from a cleaning cupboard.
Okay, and that is a huge turning point.
It is. The court accepted his intention was to use it as a means to, quote, further warn off Iliev, an attempt at deterrence, not an attack. But I have to stop you there. I mean, even if he was acting in a public-spirited way, bringing a weapon into it, even just to scare someone, that's a massive risk.
It is, and it inevitably became the core of the defense's argument later on, a critical point to dwell on.
So how did the prosecution deal with that choice he made?
Well, while retrieving the bat was definitely a physical escalation, the prosecution argued, and the court ultimately accepted, that the circumstances sort of mitigated that choice. We have to look at the immediate physical reality that followed, an immediate physical confrontation. And the evidence highlights this horrifying mismatch between the two men.
Right. The judge commented on that specifically.
You did. Judge Hurst described Mr. Whiting as a slight man weighing just 8 stone.
8 stone. So very slight.
Very. And Iliev, on the other hand, was a bigger man. The court noted how instantaneous that shift in power was. When the struggle began over the bat, the judge just concluded bluntly the tug-of-war was not a serious contest.
So he was disarmed almost immediately.
In seconds, yeah.
That emphasis on the physical disparity, it just makes the violence that followed even more shocking. The sources, they break down the fatal blows in grim detail.
They do. Iliev's first reaction shows this immediate vicious aggression. He gets 2 hands on the bat, almost lifts Mr. Whiting off his feet to disarm him.
And
then he immediately uses the weapon he's just seized. His first reaction was to raise the bat and strike Mr. Whiting as he was scrambling to his feet. That first blow landed towards his back.
And that first blow, while severe, could maybe be seen as part of the struggle itself. The second blow, That's where the court found the definitive malice, wasn't it?
Absolutely. That's what turned it from a violent struggle into murder. The evidence shows a clear pause after the first strike.
A pause. So he had time to think.
He had time. He wasn't scrambling anymore. He was in full control. The court findings say he then adopted a strong base, basically planting himself, and delivered a severe second blow aimed directly at Mr. Whiting's head.
And the judge's words here were very specific.
Extremely. He said this was delivered against a defenseless man with his back turned. That calculated severity is what sealed the murder conviction.
It's a horrifying example of how quickly spontaneous aggression can shift into calculated violence. And so tragically, Adrian Whiting didn't die immediately.
No, he was hospitalized. He succumbed to his injuries 10 days later, on January 24th.
And that timeline is vital because Iliev had initially just been charged with grievous bodily harm.
That's right. The moment Mr. Whiting died, the charge was upgraded to murder.
Which brings us to the next logical question for the court, and for us. How did justice manage to catch up?
So let's move on to that legal accountability. The trial concluded in October 2024. Iliev, who was 35, denied murder the whole time.
But the jury found him guilty?
He did, at Lincoln Crown Court in July. He was sentenced to life, with a minimum term of 17 years before he could even be considered for parole.
Now, the defense, they always seek mitigation, right? Allison Summers, KC, who represented Iliev, she centered her argument on provocation.
Of course.
She argued that it was a significant factor that Mr. Whiting produced the bat first, that Iliev might have been acting in self-defense maybe up until that second fatal blow.
They were trying to frame it as a sudden reaction, basically.
Yeah.
Confronted with a weapon, he panicked.
Exactly.
And this is where we get to the core legal nugget that defines this whole conviction. Judge Hurst utterly rejected that idea. He didn't accept Iliev was acting in self-defense at any stage.
And he was specific about why.
Very specific. He said any provocation from Mr. Whiting retrieving the bat was limited, especially given how quickly Iliev, the bigger man, got total control of it.
So the window for self-defense, in the judge's eyes, was tiny or non-existent.
It closed the moment Iliev became the dominant aggressor against a disarmed, defenseless man. The sheer force and the target of that second blow. That was evidence of malice, not fear.
So the argument failed because the court saw the aggression as calculated, not defensive, a clear intent to harm.
Precisely.
But the story of justice doesn't stop with the killer. His long-term partner, Katya Tseneva, she was also deeply involved in the aftermath.
And faced serious consequences herself.
Yeah.
She was convicted of assisting an offender and got 2 years in jail.
And this is where you see that immediate tragic spillover, the choice she made.
It's that classic moral dilemma, isn't it? The choice between loyalty to a partner and the fundamental requirement to uphold the law.
The sources detail her actions. She went back to their shared home to pack things. Critically, she used cash and jewelry to help fund a plane ticket for him.
She was trying to get him out of the country.
Completely. Iliev was intercepted with his luggage at Luton Airport. The prosecutor said he was just minutes away from fleeing the jurisdiction.
So her efforts almost worked.
Almost. And what's fascinating here is the judge's perspective on her decision.
What did he say about her?
He acknowledged she was in a deeply difficult position, a crisis where she had to choose between helping her partner flee and, doing the right thing.
And he stressed that this choice, it strikes at the very heart of the criminal justice system. It shows how loyalty, when it's placed above the law after a violent crime, becomes a crime in itself.
It's an incredibly dark sequence of choices, ending with a long prison sentence for him and a 2-year sentence for her.
Which completes the arc of the crime and the justice that followed.
But now we have to pivot to the final transformative part of this story, Adrian Whiting's character and the profound legacy he left behind.
Yes. We shift our focus now from the cold facts of the court to the warmth of the man himself.
His mother, Debbie Paul, her victim impact statement. It painted this picture of a man who just naturally gave of himself. She called him an exceptional father who would do anything for anyone.
Family, friends,
Yeah.
or as we saw, a stranger in the street.
Right. And the immense tragedy of his death is ultimately transformed by this one subject, organ donation.
This is the most powerful part of the entire story. Adrian Whiting's death resulted in a life-saving legacy that reached far beyond his own community. The details are, well, they're truly remarkable.
Tell us.
His organs saved 5 other lives. Specifically, his lungs, his heart, his liver, and both kidneys were successfully transplanted. They gave 5 people a second chance at life.
5 people.
5. And beyond that, his pancreas and brain tissue were used to support vital, life-saving medical research. It's such a profound contrast to the sudden violence that caused his death.
And what makes this so inspiring is that the decision, it wasn't made under pressure in the hospital. His
Yeah.
mother said it was an easy decision.
Because they knew what he wanted.
Exactly. It was his conscious, pre-existing wish. She said she finds it deeply comforting to know that part of Addie is out there. She's pleased that 5 people got the chance to have a decent life.
And for you, the listener, it's important to put this into a national context. The NHS Blood and Transplant states that over 7,600 people are currently waiting for an organ in the UK.
So Mr. Whiting's gift, it provided 5 of those life-saving calls, instantly resolving a critical need for 5 different families who were just stuck waiting. And that generosity was publicly recognized. The sources noted that hospitals in the region, Boston, Grantham, Lincoln, they were all illuminated every evening during Organ Donation Week to honor donors like him.
A powerful public acknowledgement.
It is. While his initial act of courage led to his death, his final act really defined his life by giving life back.
So what does this all mean for us? We've analyzed the cost of courage, a spontaneous act that ended in tragedy. Then the complex necessity of justice. And finally, this unique comfort that can come from profound generosity, even in the darkest of circumstances.
You see the full circle. One brave, spontaneous act led to tragedy, but a separate conscious choice he made years before, his desire to donate, it provided this exponential positive impact on 5 other lives.
His final legacy ensures he's remembered, not just for how he died, but for the lives he saved.
And that leads us to a final thought for you to carry forward, related directly to the legal facts we discussed.
So sources kept highlighting that critical decision Suneva faced, choosing between personal loyalty to a partner who had just committed murder and doing the right thing by upholding the law.
So the question for you is, when you're faced with those ambiguous moral decisions in your own life, how do you distinguish between deep personal loyalty and the fundamental principles required by the larger justice system?
It's a tension that really defines the complexity of human choices in a crisis.